Hey everyone, welcome back to Heartland Productions. Today I'm going to show you an easy way how to smoke a pork butt. I'm also going to help explain the difference between what's a pork butt, what's a pork shoulder, what's a shank, what's a hock, what's a picnic cut, all those different things. Go over to the smoker right now and get this started. Let's go, Chico. Come on. First thing I always do is check my hopper, make sure I have plenty of pellets. This one's looking pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and get my RecTeq fired up, just power it on. I'm gonna set it at 275 degrees. I also have both probes plugged in. You really only need one. I like to use both just to make sure in case something goes wrong with one, or if you get it in the fat or near the bone, you can kind of do the average of both. So I always keep the top one is the one that goes on the left and the bottom one on the right side, so it helps me keep track. So here are all the materials we're gonna need. Obviously the pork, have a nice good cutting knife with an acrylic handle, so if it gets all greasy and slippery, it's easy to hold on to. I have my barbecue gloves, so when it's hot, it's easier to take the pork butt on and off. I have heavy duty foil. If you don't have heavy duty barbecue foil, you're gonna need 2 or 3 layers of regular foil. I have a water pan, which I'm gonna go ahead and stick on the smoker right now. That helps keep the pork moist. I just kind of put it back in the back corner. Close this up, let it heat up. While this is heating up, we're gonna get everything ready. Also, I have my spritz, my sprayer bottle. I'm gonna put apple cider vinegar, and I'm gonna put a little Tabasco chipotle sauce in it, kind of a mixture, just to spritz the pork every hour or so to keep it moist. I also have just regular yellow mustard, and then any type of dry rub will work. Traditionally, I use a salt, pepper, and then paprika, some cayenne pepper, and garlic. So the first thing I wanna do is make my spray, my spritz. Doesn't take a lot. I'm just going to take a little bit of apple cider vinegar. You don't need a lot, maybe just a cup or two, and you really don't need anything else. I like to add a little bit of hot sauce. I like to use the smoked chipotle because it just adds a little more flavor. Screw it on good and just give it a little shake. Always make sure it's ready. Test it out. Perfect. Some of the fun things of filming this on my iPhone, I was trying to put it in the tripod and I pinched both the buttons at the same time and accidentally did the emergency 911 call. So I spent the last couple minutes talking to the 911 operator, convincing her that I was just trying to put some pork on my smoker and I wasn't having an emergency. What exactly is a pork butt? When you go to the grocery store, you're gonna see the terms pork shoulder, you're gonna see butt roast, you're gonna see pork butt, you're gonna see Boston butt roast, you're gonna see picnic cut. So typically when you hear the term pork shoulder, that refers to the kind of the entire upper part of the front legs of the pig. So from the foot up all the way to the top of the shoulder, that whole thing is really the pork shoulder. So the top part of the shoulder is what's referred to as the pork butt. Right below that is what's considered the picnic cut, so it's a little bit lower. The pork butt is a more tender piece and is typically butchered without the skin, and that one can come with either bone in or bone out.
Another common question is, why do they call it a butt when it has nothing to do with the part of the animal or the cut of the meat? A butt is actually a 126-gallon wooden barrel that during colonial times, they used those to transport the meat and different goods. And funny enough, the term buttload is actually a real thing also.
So I placed it in this pan just to kind of keep things a little neater. I'm gonna put it on the fat side up. I wanna see how much fat is on it. Typically, I don't like to cut too much fat off because you want the fat to help keep the moisture and it's gonna render down. If there's like super thick layer of hard fat on the top, you can always trim it off, or if there's a lot of excess fat. This one isn't too bad. There's just a lot of fat right through here. I mean, this is a little thick, this section, you can kind of see where it separates. So I might cut just a little bit of this off. Good, you want fat on there because that keeps it nice and moist. In reality, you don't really have to trim anything. If it's really hard to touch, sometimes it doesn't render all the way down, you just have a big hunk of fat on it. We're gonna leave the rest on there. But I am not the expert on doing pork or pulled pork. In Texas, it's not necessarily a traditional thing. I love pork, so I like to eat it. So there's a million different recipes. There's a million different ways to do it. I'm taking 2 or 3 different recipes I've seen on Instagram and YouTube, and I'm going to do a little mix and match. So I've never tried this recipe, so I'm curious to see how it turns out. First thing I'm going to do is cover it all in yellow mustard. This will help the spice rub stick and add a little bit of flavor and color. Okay, I have the mustard all on. Now I'm going to take my spice rub. I always make sure you shake it up to get all the salt mixed in. This is a huge piece of meat, so you want to liberally season it, because basically the only part that's going to have the seasoning is the outside. I mean, you can see this thing's almost 3 inches thick, so you want the outside as seasoned as possible, so don't worry about over seasoning. Also adds a nice little bark to it, almost treating it like I would a brisket. Gonna open this up, put the pork butt on. See the water pan in the corner? You want the fat side up. Now I'm gonna go and put the probes in. Put them in a little different spot. You don't want to stick it right in the bone. Very good. Let's go ahead and close this up. I'm gonna smoke this at 275 degrees for anywhere between 4 to 5 hours until the internal temperature hits 165 degrees. Let's go ahead and close this up. Again, it's been about 3 hours. I'm gonna open this up and do a quick spritz. I can't remember if I talked about spritzing before. The first 3 hours, I just let it sit. I wanna help build a nice crust on the outside so it has a little bit of a bark, almost like a brisket. So after the 3 hour point, then every 30 minutes to an hour after that, I wanna spritz it just to help keep it moist. So let's go ahead and open this up. You wanna do this quickly, you don't wanna lose all the heat. Shake the spritz up. There we go. Cover it back up. You wanna retain as much heat as possible. Perfect. We'll see you in a couple more hours. On average, you want to plan for about 1 hour per pound of meat. So that's how you kind of gauge it, to give you a ballpark idea, but you never really know for sure. There's a lot of other things that, depending on the outside temperature, the humidity, etc. So this has been about 4 hours. So I'm gonna open it up, we'll do a quick spritz. Cover it up. Again, we don't want to lose too much heat. Now we're just going to let it go until the internal temperature hits 165. The internal temperature has hit about 165. Now we're going to go ahead and pull it out of the smoker. And a little trick to make it a little easier is that I put it in an aluminum pan. So I'm going to pull it out, put it in this aluminum pan, wrap it up in foil tightly to finish it up. Before I do anything, I'm gonna open it up and spritz it one more time. Make sure you have your gloves on now, because we're gonna pull it out. That's another good indication. If you don't have probes, you can try it, but when you see the fat cap starting to crack, you know it's good to start, so you can pull it out and wrap it. I'm gonna go ahead and take the probes out and set it in the pan. Looking great. Set that there. Cover this up. Leave the probes there because you're going to need them later. I'm going to bring this over to my workbench so I can wrap it up. Now we're in the wrap phase. We just pulled it off. Internal temperature hit 165. We're going to go ahead and wrap this in foil. Wrap it up nice and tight. Again, I'm using heavy duty foil. If you don't have a pan, you can just wrap the whole thing. I like to do this in the aluminum pan. It's one less step. Make sure you seal it around the edges tightly. So I'm gonna leave the end where the thicker piece is open a little bit so I can put the probe in. Have it all wrapped up in the foil. Let's get it back on the smoker. Keep it at 275. I left this side open so I can slide the probe back in. There we go. And I'll finish wrapping it up tightly. Close it back up. This is probably going to be another 2 hours, 3 hours at the most, depending on the size of your pork butt. Okay, the internal temperature has hit 198 degrees. Go ahead and pull it off and make sure I get my gloves back on. Pull this up. Take the probe off. You want to go ahead and leave it running, but we're gonna uncover it. We're gonna put some barbecue sauce on it and put it back in just to crisp it up. So leave this turned on. We're just gonna uncover it. Show you what it looks like. Oh, that looks great. See how it's done because it's falling off the bone. Here's the bone. I can pull the bone right out. I'm gonna lift it up and put it on this foil. Help me carry it over. Put some sauce on it, stick it right back on for another 10 or 15 minutes. You gotta be careful with this part because it's super tender now, it's gonna fall off. It's so juicy, it doesn't even really need sauce. But you pour a little of this on it just to kind of crisp it up. I'm using just a Franklin's espresso sauce. It's good if you like it. It's not too sweet. I'm not a big fan of real sugary sauces. Just makes a nice glaze. Put the gloves back on. Open the lid. Let's take this over. Just gonna cook this another 10-15 minutes. Let that outside get nice and crisp, get a good bark. You getting excited for the pork butt, Tico? It's been just about 15 minutes. Let's take a look. It looks amazing. Get my gloves back on. I did drain some of the grease that was in here, just so it's not just sitting in too much fat. I'm gonna put it right back in the same pan. Look at that, absolutely delicious. You want to be careful when you pick it up because it's basically falling off the bone. So be very careful you don't drop it. The pan works great. That way I can just set it right over here. Gonna go ahead and shut the RecTeq off. I'm gonna take it inside, let it rest for about 15 minutes. Okay, it's been resting for about 30 minutes. I just set it on the cutting board. I have my gloves on just because it makes it still hot. So you can tell how tender it is by just pulling the shoulder bone right here. I can pull this bone right out. So you know it's perfectly cooked when the bone pulls right out like that. Multiple ways to do this. There's no really right or wrong way. I'm just gonna use my hands to break it up. With these gloves, it makes it very simple. Do this and make some pulled pork. Wow, the pulled pork was amazing. Absolutely delicious. I think I smoked it for just around 7 hours. And then I let it rest another 30 minutes to regain some of the moisture. Absolutely delicious, very moist. The mustard, the spice rub added tons of flavor. I went ahead and used my rubber gloves to pull the pork away. I found that was easier than using forks to do it. So if you don't have the gloves, you can use forks to pull it apart. If you do have gloves, I definitely recommend just using your hands. It's so much easier. But turned out amazing, ate it all up. It was great, had a lot of fun. Hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe, give me a thumbs up. Tico and I appreciate it. See you soon, thank you.